So let's welcome the creator, the patent holder of Stuffed Crust Pizza, Anthony Mongiello. Welcome to the program, sir. How are you?
I'm good. Thanks for having me on. I appreciate it.
Yeah, okay. And look, your story, truly incredible. I guess let's start at the beginning. How did you think of the idea of Stuffed Crust Pizza?
It makes me laugh because the reality is a lot of great inventions actually happen by accident.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a cheese man at heart. I'm not really a pizza guy. But in making pizza for someone, because they wanted me to make them pizza, and since I was in the cheese industry, I had plenty of mozzarella to go around. I wound up buying dough from a bakery. And the bakery doughs tend to be a little smaller, so I put two of them together to make the pie. Now, again, I'm not a pizza guy, so when I pushed all the excess dough to the end, if you could imagine, the crust unbaked was as big as a finished baked pizza.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't know what was going to happen in the oven, but as it cooked, the crust grew tremendously. It looked funny, but I realized as I was eating it, because there was nothing wrong with it except it looked funny, that as I bit into this crust, and if you could picture, it was huge. It was much bigger than even the stuffed crust pizza they have today. And I bit into it, and I went, wow, if this was filled with something, it would be incredible. And that's truly how stuffed crust pizza was born.
Mm-hmm. Now, clearly, Anthony, I hate to interrupt, but you stumbled on genius here. And once you do that, what's the next step? How do you think, hey, this could be a business, I got to get a patent? So tell us about that.
Yeah, that's the whole scenario. We think that the best thing for us to do is go and get a patent to protect our concept, which is correct, except there's a little bit of a glitch that people don't realize, and I've learned that I'd love to share with everybody about the mistake I made so you don't have to make the same mistake and have your product stolen from you. And again, it was a $1 billion idea. What happens is this. When you get a patent, I thought I had to wait for the patent to be issued before I approached Pizza Hut. Now, my patent was issued in April of 1987, patent number 4661361. In fact, if you go on YouTube and you punch in who invented stuffed crust pizza, all those news releases will come up just to substantiate what I'm telling you.
Mm-hmm.
Now, with this, when you apply for a patent, the first thing you get is what's called patent pending. What you have to do is you have to go and you have to do a little investigation. Either you do it yourself these days online or you hire an attorney. And you check to see before you apply for a patent that you're not going to infringe anyone else's pre-existing patent. So I went to an attorney in Manhattan, a very big law firm, and they gave me a green light. And their professional opinion was I was not infringing on anybody else's product and that I should proceed with trying to obtain a patent. So they issued me what's called a patent pending status. Now, I waited, like I said, to give my product or to show it to Pizza Hut until after it was patented because I believed that was the best protection I could have. But unknown to me, that a patent is what's called public knowledge, public domain. Anybody can view it. So what Pizza Hut did, and I sent it to them twice. I sent them, and I have correspondence telling me thank you, but no thank you. I sent it to them once in 1988, just after the patent was issued in April of 87, and again in 1991. Now, it was 1994. They launched a $45 million advertising campaign for stuffed crust pizza and sold $1.5 billion in pies in the first 10 months. Let me get back. Getting the patent I thought was the right thing, but because it's open to the public, the attorneys and Pizza Hut decided they would take my patent to their attorneys and see, instead of making a deal with me, how they could get around it. Now, the true story here is that when you have a product and you want to protect it, of course apply for a patent, but bring it to market when you get a patent pending status. So once you've got a green light that says, you know what, you're not infringing anybody else's product, go ahead and apply for a patent. You're given patent pending status. But the patent pending status is a closed file.
Mm-hmm.
If I would have taken this to market as a patent pending product, no big companies like Pizza Hut would have stole it or knocked it off because they would have been afraid of what would have been the outcome with the patent and what would have truly been in the patent because they would have been liable for patent infringement.
God, Anthony, I just want to understand this. Yeah. So for people listening, if they have an idea for a pet rock or a jump to conclusions, Matt, the concept is you have to bring it to market to some degree. So you could have maybe opened up a very tiny pizza shop selling stuffed crust pizza under a patent pending application. And then once it was at market and people were buying, even if it's $10 a day, if Pizza Hut had copied you then, you would say that they were infringing upon your patent, which is pending, and hurting you in the marketplace, and you would be entitled to X dollars in damage, and you would have been totally in the clear. The problem is it was just never brought out of the intellectual phase to the market, and that's where you got hit.
That's exactly right. Now, again, they as big companies wouldn't take a chance on a patent-pending product to try and steal it or knock it off because they would be afraid they would be liable to a lawsuit when the patent was granted because they just don't know what's written in the body of the patent.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
That's the most important part to understand.
And you went after Pizza Hut, and how did they tell us how the story ends in the sense that you didn't get it? You didn't get any money out of this. Is that correct?
I didn't get any money. It's a disgrace. You know, here's another thing that I can tell you. We were able to hire another law firm to fight for us and try and sue Pizza Hut for patent infringement, which we did sue them. But when I had to sign the papers, because I didn't have to pay the attorneys, Andy, what I did was they took it on consignment, which means that if they win, they get a percentage of the money. But if they don't win, they don't get paid anything.
Right.
But what I didn't realize is how much rights I give away to decision-making during the process. And I'll give you an example. We went to a meeting, and my lawyers demanded $29 million at the first meeting. And Pizza Hut's like, listen, let's talk, let's negotiate. And my lawyers didn't want to negotiate. It was terrible. I mean, listen, $5 million, I'm out the door with smiles on my face forever.
And Anthony, I got to interrupt. So your lawyers won 29. Did Pizza Hut make any offer? Did they say $250,000? Did they ever make any offer? Or was your attorney's ask so large, Pizza Hut didn't even counter?
He was so confident we were going to win. He says, I want $29 million. And that was based on the rate of sales they had done to that point and how many outlets they had at over 8,000 of them. Mm-hmm. Now, listen, I want you to understand, we were at a settlement meeting. They called us to a settlement meeting. So they were prepared to put money on the table, but my lawyer stood to his guns and said, I want $29 million. And that's when we had to walk out the door because they wouldn't pay $29 million. They said, for that much money, we will fight. And the disgrace of it is this. I didn't bring the fights to the street. We were going to go and picket Pizza Hut, and we were going to be a thorn in their side, and our lawyer said, if you want to do that, you're not going to win. And I don't believe that. I believe when you're in a fight with a giant as big as Pizza Hut, who happens to be owned at the time, if still not today, by PepsiCo, well, you have to realize they have very deep pockets.
Right, so you settle. Right.
You have to fight them in a place where you can win, and that would have been the streets. But it's absolutely terrible. And I'm going to tell you this. My patent was withheld. I still have my patent. It was my product. I did send it to them twice. And if I read you my patent and gave you the ingredients they used to stuff their crust, you would make my product every time.
Got it. So I guess you didn't get any dough out of this, no pun intended. But what do you think the settlement would have been in the sense that, so you asked for $29 million. Did they ever say a counter or there was never a counter?
You want to know a funny thing? There was never a counter offer in that particular meeting. But I'm going to tell you this: the day they launched it, it was like I said, 95. Okay, and I read it in the newspaper and watched it on TV. I picked up the phone. I was just starting out at 26 years old in my business, and I went ahead and I called Pizza Hut corporate. You know what they told me on the phone? I said, "Well, Andy, we know who you are. You know who I am." Mm-hmm. We're offering you $50,000 right now for the patent and the trademark. I said, "Well, wait a minute. You don't even know me. I don't even know you, and you're offering me $50,000 over the phone. That means I have a legitimate case." And that's when I went to the attorneys, and that's when we proceeded with the lawsuit.
You know, it's interesting, Anthony, and this reminds me, I don't know if you're aware of the case of Dr. Robert Kearns, but he invented the intermittent windshield wiper that everybody uses on their cars right now. Back in the 1950s, Ford, Chrysler, GM, they couldn't figure out how to make a windshield wiper work intermittently. And Dr. Robert Kearns was a professor at a local college in Detroit, Michigan. He solved the problem. He showed it to General Motors, and he showed it to Ford Motor Company. They ended up just taking the invention from him, just stealing it from him outright, and it destroyed Dr. Robert Kearns' life. He fought them over a 15-year period. And this is chronicled. It was a great movie called Flash of Genius with Greg Kinnear. And after 15 years of fighting, he ended up winning in patent court, and he won tens of millions of dollars in settlements. It destroyed his family, though, because he made it his personal mission, and his wife left him, his kids left him, and he was obsessed with winning. But, you know, this is just interesting because it's about an inventor holding on to their idea. You know, the inventor of the FM radio, actually, his idea was taken by RCA, and he jumped out of a 14-story window. So I'm very sensitive to this, and I think your story is very interesting. It's just an interesting story.
It is. You know what? It really was my American dream. It was my shot to make millions and millions of dollars at a young age. I had a good idea. I had a good concept. Why couldn't they do just good business?
Mm-hmm.
Why couldn't they come and talk to me? I sent them the product. I did everything I thought was right. As an American citizen, I had to follow the letter of the law, and I thought I would be protected. But I was at the mercy of too many people, and I certainly wasn't protected the way I thought I would be. And a patent I never realized becomes public knowledge, and that people can read it and try and figure out what changes, subtle changes they can make that would stand up in court at a time when they're going to try and fight to steal your right.
Got it.
Why does it have to be that way, Anthony?
And Anthony,
Why?
and it looks like you were dealt another hand of bad luck with lawyers who just didn't know when to call it a day. So, Anthony, I hate to do this, but we got to jump in a minute. But I just want to know what you're doing now. So, Anthony Mongiello, once again, the patent holder for Stuffed Crust Pizza. This whole legal saga regarding Pizza Hut is an incredible story. People can Google it online. But you're now the head of a cheese company, so this doesn't have an unhappy ending. Formaggio Cheese, tell us real quick what you're doing now.
Well, I've been for 21 years manufacturing fresh mozzarella products. Do you know how to say cheese in Italian?
The way that you sound it, it's so appetizing. It's like making my mouth water. Say mozzarella again. Do that.
It's mozzarella.
You sound like a good fella. I feel like I'm watching Paul Sorvino in jail.
You know what? I'm just a regular guy like everybody else out there trying to find their American dream. But the real way you say cheese in Italian is Formaggio, and that's the cheese company that I own.
Cool.
And I started in a little garage in Brooklyn, and now I got a 65,000 square foot state-of-the-art facility, and we ship nationwide, and I never stopped reaching for that American dream, and no one ever should.
Well, Anthony,
no one ever should.
God bless you. The website, FormaggioCheese.com, and thanks for joining us. Very cool segment. Very cool. You're a very cool person. Thank you, man.
Thank you so much.
All right, brother. You take care. Okay, cool. Very interesting guy. I like him.